You know the story of the young girl who's lived a sheltered life but suddenly finds herself trapped in a magical yet dangerous world?
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Where her main opponent is a powerful witch she seems hopelessly overmatched against.
I'll get you, my pretty.
But fortunately, she makes some friends who help her out and whom she helps out in turn. She also learns that despite her fear, she's not just a timid little girl. She's a lot braver and stronger and more resilient than she first thought herself capable. And then the whole thing ends with the suggestion that it was all a dream?
There's no place like home.
Of course you do. That's Spirited Away, one of my absolute favorite movies, which I'm somehow only just now realizing sounds a lot like The Wizard of Oz. Huh. Who knew? Then again, those similarities, while noteworthy, only go so far. Dorothy, after all, never has to get a job in the Land of Oz. She doesn't have to put up with cranky coworkers or derisive supervisors. She doesn't have to save her parents from being slaughtered as pigs. She never forgets her own name.
Chihiro, that's my name, isn't it?
She never has to force-feed her friend a ball of spirit ipecac when he's bleeding to death in the form of a dragon, causing him to puke up a golden seal that he stole from the witch's twin sister. And, crucial to this video, Dorothy never encounters a mysterious demon who follows her around and at first seems eager to help, but whose intentions become more sinister as the story progresses, leaving you wondering just how evil is this guy? That guy is No-Face, and he just might be the greatest side character ever. I say side character here because supporting character doesn't quite fit. Going back to The Wizard of Oz, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion are supporting characters. Though they have their own character arcs,
Why, you're nothing but a great big coward.
their main function is to be a part of Dorothy's story, aka the plot. You could say the same about Haku, Lin, and Kamaji. They also have their own arcs, but are mainly there to support Chihiro. They're so much a part of Chihiro's story that it's hard to imagine Spirited Away without them. Lin shows Chihiro around and teaches her the job. Kamaji helps Chihiro in ways she couldn't help herself, and Haku is Haku. You're not telling the story without him.
Don't talk to me and address me as Master Haku.
But No-Face is different. He's largely peripheral to the plot. From a purely narrative standpoint, he's not necessary to any of the film's 5 acts. From Chihiro and her parents getting trapped in the spirit world, to her getting a job at the bathhouse run by Yubaba, to her rescuing Haku, to her journeying to Zeniba's to return what Haku stole, and to her helping Haku remember his name, which sets him free, before he helps Chihiro return home. While this criminally brief synopsis of mine obviously leaves out a ton, even stripped to the bone, it still works really well. If you came up with this as a writer, you'd be thrilled. It's a once-in-a-lifetime idea that absolutely could have been the basis for an excellent story. And yet, without No-Face, that story wouldn't have worked anywhere near as well. And that's what I find, or one of the things I find, so fascinating about him. Why does this movie depend so heavily on a character who doesn't seem to matter? To answer that, we need to get to the heart of what Spirited Away is really about. You know how when you meet someone for the first time, one question that's inevitably asked is, "What do you do?" I hate being asked that because I don't have a very interesting job, and I don't like the idea of my job somehow defining who I am. Now, we never hear that question asked in this movie, but that's only because for pretty much every character we meet, we already know the answer. They work in the bathhouse. Like most places that employ a lot of people, the bathhouse is a world unto itself, one that's rife with factions, hierarchies, petty squabbles, jerk bosses, and demanding customers.
The radish spirit.
I love this scene where Lin, despite being annoyed at having to show Chihiro around, upon running into a customer, immediately adopts this false enthusiasm that anyone who works in retail or the service industry will instantly recognize.
Sorry, sir, this elevator doesn't go any higher. You'll have to take another one. Thank you.
While the bathhouse is unquestionably magical, it's not exactly wonderful for the people who work there. It's actually a pretty crappy job, which makes the story, despite all its weirdness, surprisingly relatable. Raise your hand if you've never felt stuck at a crappy job you'd love to leave.
Lin and Sen, you get the big tub today.
What? Hey, that's frog work.
For bathhouse employees, it's even worse than that because they never leave at all. They live at the bathhouse. Forget about work-life balance. Work is their life, and it's one many would love to escape. As Lin says to Chihiro one night,
I've got to get out of this place. Someday I'm getting on that train.
while I root for Lin to make good on her vow, if she's anything like Kamaji, I'm not holding out hope. It's Kamaji who gives Chihiro the train tickets that allow her to travel to Zeniba's house, and these are probably the most valuable thing he owns. Lin can't believe he even has them.
You've got train tickets? How did you get a hold of them?
I've been saving them for 40 years.
40 years? That's a long time for someone who doesn't seem to like his job. When we first meet Kamaji, he calls himself a slave.
Yeah, I'm Kamaji, slave to the boiler that heats the baths.
But if that's how he feels, then why does he stay? Why do they all stay?
So, your name's Chihiro.
Yes, ma'am.
One obvious answer to that is Yubaba's penchant for doing this.
From now on, your name is Sen.
Which works. By the following morning, not only has Chihiro forgotten her name, she's forgotten that she's forgotten.
I can't believe I forgot my name. She almost took it from me.
While she still remembers her parents at this point, if she'd remained Sen for much longer, then how long before she forgot them as well? Not to mention the rest of her previous life, just like Haku and presumably everyone else who works there. This is the film's warning for how, if you're not careful, your occupation can rob you of your identity, which is understandable in a place where you're no longer supposed to be an individual, but rather a cog in a machine. A lot of the cogs at the bathhouse aren't thrilled with this arrangement, but what can they do about it? The only options they have to improve their lives are to move up the employee rankings or board this train and never come back. Neither option is easy. Moving up means outmaneuvering everyone else who's thinking the exact same thing, and leaving is prohibitively expensive, not to mention it brings with it all the requisite anxiety that comes with stepping into the unknown.
Don't leave me. I don't want to be alone.
Failing those two options, you're kinda stuck, so you may as well settle into a life you'll never escape and take pleasure wherever you can find it, even if it means laughing at those who have it worse than you.
Heard you got the big tub, Lynn.
This is the world that No-Face wanders into, and though Yubaba never steals his name, she doesn't have to. No-Face shows up without seeming to know who he is or what he's supposed to do, which is why he fits so perfectly into a story about identity. It's also why he fits so well into Chihiro's story. He illustrates the real danger that she's in. Bear in mind, Chihiro only gets her name back thanks to Haku, but what if he hadn't been able to help her? What if she lost her name for good? What happens to someone who forgets who they are and what their values are and finds themselves in a ruthless world where greed and selfishness is encouraged? No-Face is about to show us. Fittingly, we first meet him on the side of the bridge to the bathhouse, where he's in the middle of all this activity, yet is ignored by everyone. Not even Chihiro notices him at first. It's not till the following morning that she finally sees him, which begs the question, how long has he been standing here just waiting for someone to acknowledge him? Furthermore, why is he waiting at all? You don't need permission to enter the bathhouse. No one wanted this guy to go in, but he still did. Yet No-Face hesitates. He's like a kid in a cafeteria with no one to sit with, so he doesn't sit with anyone, but is always on the lookout for any kind of signal that he might be welcome somewhere, which Chihiro inadvertently provides.
I'll leave the door open for you.
With those words, No-Face enters the bathhouse. And at first, things actually work out well. When Chihiro needs a bath token that this prick foreman refuses to provide, No-Face gives her one and she thanks him.
What?
Thank you very much.
So far, so good. However, this brief exchange winds up being the only positive interaction he has during his entire stay. It's all downhill from here, starting with him clumsily trying to give Chihiro more bath tokens only minutes later that she neither asked for nor wanted. Clearly, No-Face's social skills have room for improvement, which is understandable because this is all new to him. He's like a child, and so he learns like a child by watching.
I learned it by watching you.
After watching this brilliant sequence with the river spirit that culminates with everyone going nuts for gold.
Gold! Hey! Wait! That's company property!
No-Face puts the horrifying lesson he's just learned into practice, namely that money gives you the right to do and to take anything you want. Sadly, his depravity has only just begun. By the time we next see him, he's morphed into this grotesque blob, wolfing down plate after plate of fancy food while being doted on by the entire staff. It's quite the contrast to when we first met him and he was alone and ignored. Now he's the center of attention, living it up. So does that mean he succeeded? Did he get what he wanted? We find out when he again runs into Chihiro. Just as he did before, he tries to give her stuff, this time gold, which has worked on everyone else so far, except Chihiro isn't like everyone else. She couldn't care less about gold. She's trying to save Haku, so once again she rejects his offer, and once again No-Face feels rejected, only this time it's worse. He thought he was figuring things out, only to realize he's just as lost as he was before, which he unsurprisingly doesn't take well. Again, I love how this completely bonkers story always manages to be comprehensible. Watching it, you understand that despite being a spirit monster, No-Face has made a very human mistake. He thought status alone would fill the emptiness inside him, but as he tells Chihiro after demanding she be brought to him, "I'm lonely." While he succeeded in attracting attention, deep down he knows these people don't really like him. They just like his money, which only makes him feel more alone. Because Chihiro is the only person whose attention he can't buy, he becomes convinced that what he really wants is a deeper connection with her.
I want Sen. I want Sen.
Take the gold!
The problem is he doesn't really know what that means. The only ways he's discovered to connect with anyone is to buy them or consume them. Yet if he did to Chihiro what he thinks he wants, he wouldn't feel any better. Like a lot of people, No-Face is terrible at understanding what will make him happy. Realizing this and displaying incredible grace under pressure, Chihiro feeds him the other half of the spirit Ipecac, which, as we've learned, makes you puke up anything harmful or corrupting inside you. That's why it made Haku puke up the seal and the slug, and why it makes No-Face puke up everything he's gluttoned himself on since entering the bathhouse. It's also why when Chihiro took a small bite earlier, it was unpleasant but didn't make her throw up at all.
What's wrong?
Because there's nothing corrupt about Chihiro. She's just a good person. Case in point, even as she runs for her life from No-Face, she still helps him in the best way she can. She leads him out of the bathhouse. By the time they board the train to Zeniba's, No-Face has come full circle. No longer the bully on the playground, he's back to being the kid who doesn't know where to sit. Literally.
Sit here. Behave yourself, okay?
Fortunately, he does as he's told, and we get to enjoy one of the greatest scenes ever. I don't know why this makes me feel happy and sad at the same time. While you can certainly appreciate this for its melancholy beauty or its meditative vibe, there's a clever deception going on here as well. Chihiro isn't actually accomplishing what she set out to. Remember, the whole reason she goes to Zeniba's is to save Haku. Yet, unbeknownst to her, she's already saved him. The love she feels for Haku is what broke the spell on the seal that was slowly killing him, and the slug he puked up that Chihiro squashed was Yubaba's.
My sister put that slug in Haku so she could control him.
So if she never came here at all, Haku still would have been in great shape. But that doesn't mean this trip was wasted. Far from it. For one, it gave us this incredible scene. For two, we wouldn't have known about the spell or the slug if Zeniba hadn't pointed them out, so we get some useful exposition. For three, Haku uses this trip to Zeniba's as leverage to get Yubaba to release Chihiro from her contract.
What did you do with my baby?
He's with your sister.
And lastly, Chihiro does save someone by coming here. She saves No-Face. Watch what happens when Chihiro and Zeniba are talking at her table. Though your attention is on them, off to the side, something quietly monumental is happening. No-Face is eating a slice of cake, and in the next shot, he's finished. Unimpressed? Well, then go back to when he was in the bathhouse, eating everything in sight and demanding more. That did not make him happy, but he couldn't stop. Yet here, he learns that eating a slice of cake is paradoxically more enjoyable than eating an entire cake and hating yourself afterwards. Even more life-changing is when Zeniba makes Chihiro this magical scrunchie.
It'll protect you.
I'm not exactly sure how this is supposed to protect her, but even if it didn't do anything, it's still massively beneficial, just not not to Chihiro. Again, the person this really helps is No-Face. Look what he's doing. He's knitting. Name anything else he does that comes close to this. The only thing I can think of is when he gives Chihiro the bath token, which again was his only positive interaction in the bathhouse.
Thank you very much.
Everything else he did there was harmful, either to himself or to someone else. But here, he helped someone, and in doing so, he gained so much more. To understand what he gained, we need to answer a fundamental question about No-Face that we still haven't. What does he want?
I want Sen.
We've already established that he wants a connection with Chihiro, the only person who noticed him or treated him nicely prior to him having money, so that's definitely part of it. But it wasn't just interacting with Chihiro that made him happy here. It's also that he did something. He performed a task. He got to feel useful. No-Face doesn't just want someone to connect with, he wants something to do, something that gives him a sense of direction and purpose that he can devote his energy and time to. In other words, No-Face wants a job. So while this movie does present a somewhat cynical take on work, the core message of Spirited Away is not that work is bad. Yes, there are lousy jobs, and God knows there are lousy employers, but work itself is more in the eye of the beholder. Let's go back to Kamaji for a second. Why do you think he stays at a job he hates if he could leave at any time? Is it simply because Yubaba stole his identity so he doesn't have a choice? That's certainly possible, but it's also possible that he likes being the boiler man no matter how much he complains about it. I mean, look at him. He's built for this. He's good at it, and unlike No-Face, the bathhouse doesn't turn him into a bad person. He helps Chihiro throughout the story. Seems to me like Kamaji knows exactly who he is, so why should he stop? Just because he's old? Hayao Miyazaki, the man behind Spirited Away and the majority of Studio Ghibli's best films, is in his 80s, and he's still going strong. And I say good for him. If you don't devote your energy to something, whether you're getting paid for it or not, you'll go crazy, like No-Face did. One reason the bathhouse is so terrible for him is because there's nothing for him to do there other than give in to his worst impulses. There's no challenge. But knitting, that's a great challenge. It requires tenacity, concentration, and it produces something tangible. And to top it off, Zeniba tells him,
No-Face, where did you learn to spin thread? You're really good at this.
Which is the only time in the movie he's given validation for a job well done. So when Zeniba invites him to stay, we know that No-Face has finally found what he's looking for, a place where he belongs. All of which brings me to my final question, is No-Face good or bad? Now, it probably won't shock you to learn that I love No-Face, flaws and all. He's just as awkward as I am. He's prone to binge eating, his fear of loneliness causes him to make poor decisions, and deep down, he just wants what everyone wants. Connection, purpose. He didn't know how to get those things before, so he made some mistakes along the way. It's kinda hard to hate on someone just for that. And yet, while he didn't cause any irreparable harm in the bathhouse, his actions were still awful, and they could have been worse. Imagine if he caught Chihiro here. She may never have gotten home or been able to save her parents. So despite my affection for him, I can't just give him a pass for this. As to whether he's good or bad, I think the best answer is yes. No-Face is a product of his environment. Put him in a place where he has no connection with anyone beyond the superficial, where he never has to do anything beyond what's incredibly easy, and where he's stuck in this never-ending pursuit of short-term pleasure, and it brings out the worst in him. But put him in a place where he's encouraged to discover his unique talents, and where he can connect with someone he admires but who expects him to control himself, and it brings out the best in him. That's the real message of Spirited Away. That you can change who you are while remaining true to yourself, and that there's more than one way to make that happen. Haku had to remember who he is, to get back the ideals that he lost.
I knew you were good.
No-Face had to discover who he is, to learn where he needs to be in order to thrive.
You're really good at this.
Chihiro has to do both. She has to remember who she is, so she isn't stuck being who someone else wants her to be, but she also has to discover that she isn't stuck being who she thought she was either.
I don't want to be alone.
She can push past her self-applied limitations because identity is not fixed. For better or for worse, you can change, just like No-Face. And that is why I love this truly remarkable film about finding who you are, and why I love its oddball side character who starts off not knowing who he is or what he's supposed to do. If you've never wondered those things about yourself, then I'm kinda surprised that you made it to the end of this video.